And so I'm going to go ahead and get started here with Matt Hinton. And so, Brian Boyd, I'll let you go ahead and take the lead here.
So, Matt.
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
Very well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Are you having fun in Butte?
I am. I love Butte.
How long you been here?
It's a super weird place.
What's weird about it?
Just a crazy weird place.
Yeah?
Yep.
Like, what have you noticed?
Well, you, for starters, that's part of it. In a totally good way.
Yeah.
But it's an odd place.
It is odd.
I like Butte a lot.
It's okay to be odd here.
Sure. Absolutely.
It's kind of fun.
I've gathered that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, your movie is a really surprising documentary, especially in the rock and roll documentary format. It's got a couple of twists and turns that I don't really want to ruin for the audience, but I gotta say that it caught me by surprise. I wanted it to be just like fun, and I wanted the band to be good, and I started hearing about the band, and I was wondering like why I hadn't heard about this band before, and then I started seeing some of the footage of the band playing from the 90s, and I was like, how is this band not the biggest band in the world in 1995?
Right.
Because man, nobody had that sound. Nobody had that sound, and it was just I felt a little bit ashamed of myself as a DJ because I felt like I should have already heard of Luxury. I mean, you had the visual aesthetic, you had the performance, you had the recording aspect of the thing, but then you hit us with the story of the band, and it takes over, and you're just on board. You're in as an audience member.
Great.
So, what was it like to make this a film about a band you're in? That's got to be different.
Yes, that was complicated. And I think part of it is because I joined the band later in the game.
I noticed you kind of glossed over the records you helped record.
A little bit.
Like you told the story, and then you joined the band, and then they recorded 3 albums, and then.
Right. I was conscious of the fact that there's nothing lamer on planet Earth than making a film about your own band. And so I wanted to avoid my presence in it over much. And I was already in control of how I was telling the story. So I didn't feel like I needed to be on the screen.
Well, you definitely succeeded in that. No, because the story that you chose to tell was not the story of how you joined the band and made their guitar section a little bit better.
Yeah, right.
It was the story of how this thing happened, and then it changed the perspective of everybody involved.
Yes.
And how that played out for all the different people, not just the people that became Orthodox priests. Yeah, this is about a band that rocks. You just heard them. You just heard a couple of different songs by them, and 3 out of the 5 members on those recordings are Eastern Orthodox priests. I mean, and they're not an exactly relaxed religion, are they, Matt?
No, I would not say that it's a relaxed. I would say that it's Orthodox.
Yes.
In every respect.
Okay.
Yes, it's hold to a traditional rendering and understanding of the Christian faith, dating back, depending on how you look at it, to either roughly 33 AD or 1054 AD, depending on how you slice it.
Yeah.
But it's an old, the liturgy that they used.
So literally that old time religion.
Yeah. Yes.
Interesting. So in your film touches on that. That's one of the things that drew those band members to that path was the fact that they went to a seminary school. That's where they met, and in that experience they noticed that everybody had their own take on things. Everybody sort of had their own view of what this or that meant, and they're like, well, was there ever a time when it meant one thing?
Yeah, when there was a sort of more of a consensus.
Yeah.
And during the the period of the ecumenical councils, which started in 325 AD. From that point forward, there were 7 ecumenical councils, and that's where there was broad consensus across the board from the 5 patriarchates of the church. So you had the African churches, you had the Asian churches, you had the European churches, all in the same, basically saying the same things.
Yeah.
And coming to consensus and forming the creed and so forth. So that they were able to look, these guys in the band.
But there were other people at the table at that time, other than just the churches as well. It was those councils were political as well. That
I see
formed
what you mean. I mean, you know, if you read Da Vinci Code,
that would
lead you in one
things.
direction. But no, I don't. I think that's overestimated substantially.
To make people who will, you know, follow other people.
Yeah, I don't see it that way. I don't see it that way. I mean, I certainly imagine that they don't see it that way.
No, probably not.
But yeah, I think that they were coming. I don't know how much you want to talk theology here.
Okay, you're right. We do have a lot of filmmakers in the room. Actually, I'm gonna count around with the room. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 films represented right now. We got to get to all of them before the 10 o'clock hour. So maybe we should get back to the movie.
Yeah, we'll come back here and talk theology at 3 a.m.
We'll have drinks later for that. All right. Okay. So you want to talk story about the movie? You want to talk editing? You want to talk production? We've got other people that were part of the film.
Yes.
Here.
Scott Lansing.
That could be a part of this conversation.
That worked on it as well. He and I, from a production point of view, I had started shooting, not realizing I was shooting this film, but shooting footage of the band, recording, and what have you for the past 15 or 20 years, and never imagining that what I was doing was making a film. And then when we just sort of regrouped after about 8 years of not recording anything, about 3 years ago, at that point, 3 of the guys in the band were Orthodox priests, and it dawned on me that all of a sudden it felt like a story. It just felt interesting all of a sudden in ways that maybe I couldn't have justified a film before that. But all of a sudden it's like, well, these are priests, or we're making a rock and roll record. There's something in this. So began production in earnest at that point. And then when it came to editing, Scott and I sort of went back and forth. I would cut the film for 3 months, and then pass it over to Scott for a week, and then he'd hand it back to me, and we would just sort of go back and forth like that. Maybe Scott can say something about the process.
One of the coolest things about Luxury was I ran into, it was late night, early 90s. I went down to, it was in Smithsonian Bar in Atlanta, Georgia. I went downstairs. There was nobody in there, and there was a band called They Sang As They Slew.
Should have been early 2000s.
Was it 2000s?
Yeah.
Oof, it's been a long time. So early 2000s. So I saw this band, and they played, and it was like a Tuesday, and they blew me away. And I had a memory of it, and I'd heard about, I had not heard about the band at all, and bought the $10 CD that was gone, and me and whoever, that one other person was in the room, and left, and didn't really forget about it. And then years later, when editor friend of mine had got me in contact with Matt, and we started talking, it came up, and all of a sudden they're an off-branch band that had come off of Luxury, a band that had totally moved me, and it wasn't even the full band. It was a couple of
It was
the guitarist and and I was floored. And so then it was like everything coming together when I heard Luxury, and I'd had a filming music background in Atlanta with a lot of bands, underground bands, and filming that thing. So I was completely into this because of the band. And once I heard that sound, I was floored and wanted definitely to work with Matt.
Yeah, the sound, especially for the era, is just incredible. There was literally nothing like it in '95. Nothing like it back then.
Yeah, I again joined late, but that was definitely my feeling about it. It was a weird. Well, part of the thing is that the drummer was an old sort of metal guy. Like he was into Kiss and AC/DC and Black Sabbath on one hand. That was sort of where he was coming from musically. And then you had a singer who was into Morrissey mainly. Morrissey and the Smiths and the House Martins and stuff like that. So those guys don't belong in a band together at all.
No.
Then you've got a bass player who's into, Fugazi and Minor Threat. So, and he doesn't belong in a band with either of those guys. And then you've got a guitar player, the other guitar player, who's sort of was into, The Cure and Depeche Mode and U2 and these kinds of things.
Yeah.
So when you bring those things together, and part of it is that they were at this small school in North Georgia, where it's like you kind of look around, it's like, well, we're the only dudes that are like on the same planet.
How many people live in Toccoa, Georgia?
Oh, I looked into this. Not many. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, it's 10,000 maybe. I don't know. 5,000. I mean, it's not big.
No.
Maybe 5,000.
No. So it was a limited music scene.
Yeah, for sure, and particularly at the school that they all wound up at, which was a small, like, Christian liberal arts college. And it was just it was a very different scene. It was in the era when you would look around and see who was wearing Doc Martens and who was wearing a band t-shirt or whatever, to get any sense of, like, can I relate to this guy over here? So.
And Luxury is one of those bands that other bands know who Luxury is. When fans or soon-to-be fans don't know who Luxury is, it's the strangest thing. And it is the same thing that happened to you. It's you suddenly hear Luxury and you get access to their library and you're like, why haven't I not heard this?
Yeah. I was flabbergasted that I had never heard whispers of this band.
But if you see the film, it reveals why. Like there
are reasons. Nothing happens for no reason.
Yeah.
And so it's really a great film, not only because of that, but because there are actually moments of catharsis in this film, which is rare in a band film, because things happen.
Yeah, there's some twists and turns.
Yeah.
For sure.
So go out. That film will be shown tomorrow night. Parallel Love, the story of a band called Luxury. It's going to go off at 6:30 p.m. at the Thornton Ballroom. It's got great sound in there. It's going to sound great. We've got beer from Butte Brewing, and will be Muddy Creek, our beer sponsors. I want to thank all our sponsors at Covellite International Film Festival. We have other films.